This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. A very important show. I say that every time because it gets more and more important, particularly as this coronavirus known as COVID-19 marches on. Particularly since the government is in a state of disarray, both Republicans and Democrats. But the president is the president, and I support him. But let's call a spade a spade. Let's be real. There's a lot of confusion out there. The state governors have imposed stay-at-home orders under threat of arrest or serious harm. Certain state governors have broken away from that, or even letting people into tattoo parlors, such as in Georgia. There seems to be no control at the federal or state level. Couple that with the panic and fear-mongering of the cable news networks, including Fox News, and you have a country which is spinning wildly out of control. And Fox just this week had to extend their attempts at panic by saying that young people are now exposed by COVID-19 to the risk of heart attack and stroke. So basically, we're covering everybody. We're covering old people. We're covering middle-aged people. We're covering young people. We're covering babies. They got to jack it up to jack up their ratings to make more money, which they're making money hand over fist. So much so that the leftist head of Fox News, of Fox Corporation, Lachlan Murdoch, the son of Rupert Murdoch, who is a leftist, along with his brother James, disingenuously, if not in a phony way, says that the top management at Fox is cutting their salaries by half. Well, you know what? They're already worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and you can bet that next year that'll be made up 3 times fold or more. But let's get down to what's really happening here, which is the real threat, and that is the election of Joe Biden. And I say this in my personal capacity. I don't tell people who to vote for, but I'm going to tell you the hard facts of life. Is that just in the last week or so, former President Barack Hussein Obama endorsed Joe Biden. He's held that back now for several years. Why did he endorse Joe Biden? Joe Biden, who didn't need coronavirus to become brain dead, who will probably die in office once elected because he's in such bad physical condition, probably have a stroke if he doesn't become completely incapacitated with severe dementia or Alzheimer's. He'll be coloring books in the White House before he goes, probably. The fact is that there was a quid pro quo in all likelihood. And Biden made it clear this week. He says, I want Michelle Obama as my vice president. Now, if that happens, the independent voters in this country, confused as they are, many of them, think that she's a great woman. They don't realize that she's anti-white. They don't realize she's a racist, that she's not in favor of people of faith. We remember what the Obamas did, favoring Muslim interests and dissing Israel over matters that concern the national security of the United States, including signing a phony deal with Iran, giving back billions of dollars, which are used as terrorist weapons against the Jewish state and against the rest of the world. This is what's going to happen. In that context, I've written an article. It's going to be up at freedomwatchusa.org, freedomwatchusa.org. You can find it at WND.com that I write for. It'll be up this weekend. And it's telling the president in this context where the election is going to be close. You know, the person who's in charge, whether it's fair or not, is the one who's blamed during a crisis. It's easy for Biden and Michelle Obama to take shots at Trump because they don't have to actually do anything. They can just be critical. The president is going to be blamed. And thus far, He's just done a fair job. He hasn't done a great job. Let's be honest. I'm not a cheerleader like Sean Hannity. I support the president, but I want there to be constructive criticism. He's confused. One day, the virus is no problem. Next day, it's a big problem. He's not taking strong stands against China. Freedom Watch has to do that with our class action lawsuits and also with our criminal case that we filed at The Hague, Holland. And we filed another class action in Israel, and there's going to be more. Later on in the show, you're going to hear a Chinese dissident, Yu Ming, who can tell you of the evil nature and inhumanity of the communist Chinese. He's Chinese. And the Chinese people in this country know that. Many of them fled from communist China. People in Taiwan can tell you that. People around the world can tell you that. It's not this nice country that makes iPhones and golf clubs and your clothes. Behind that is an evil regime that harvests organs. Remind you of Planned Parenthood? I guess Planned Parenthood would fit in really well in communist China. But it is evil to the core. And the president has not taken strong action. It's not enough to say Chinese virus. His attorney general says, I might intervene if somebody else brings a lawsuit. The guy's a complete disgrace. He's 100 pounds of you-know-what in a 50-pound bag. He doesn't do anything. He's hiding under his desk, probably with a mask, as I've said before. Didn't indict Comey. Didn't indict McCabe. Didn't indict the Lovebirds. Didn't indict Clapper and Brennan. Just walked away as part of the establishment because everybody in Washington has dirt on everybody else. And this brings us to the ultimate issue. There's an article which appeared last Friday in Politico titled Trump's Poor Poll Numbers Trigger GOP Alarms Over November. Now, sure, Politico is to the left, but it's also respected. They're not way out, but they're absolutely right in this instance. Let me read you the first few paragraphs of this article, and it's quoted in my WND story that you can find at freedomwatchusa.org. Senior Republicans and President Donald Trump's campaign are wrestling with how to best position him for November as the coronavirus poses a great threat to his reelection. With Trump's poll figures sagging in key battleground states 6 months out from the election, the Republican National Committee has launched a massive effort to reach some 20 million swing voters to make an affirmative case for his performance. But Trump campaign officials are taking a different approach. Rather than devoting resources to boost Trump's numbers, which haven't moved materially since he was elected, they want to go scorched earth against Joe Biden. Well, frankly, there's nothing wrong going scorched earth against Biden. I call him O-Biden. I guess it's like Obama. But the real point there is that you've got 20 million swing voters. And at the same time that all this is happening and the president's performance with regard to the coronavirus is suspect, except with everybody except his most ardent supporters, these 20 million swing voters will decide the election. In this context, the president has to think hard and fast about pardoning his friend Roger Stone. And let me tell you why. Roger Stone, self-styled dirty trickster, admirer of the mafia, someone who was convicted on 5 perjury counts, 1 count of obstructing justice and 1 of witness tampering, which is obstructing justice, 7 perjury counts, has been campaigning through political hacks like Tucker Carlson, his shill, who also had his people over at the Daily Caller defame Jerry Corsi, my client. And Carlson's going to be hauled before a deposition to testify as to that shortly once the coronavirus subsides. But the reality is this, is that Roger Stone's not liked by independents. The president has campaigned on what happened to him with regard to the 2 witch hunts over Russia and Ukraine and the failed impeachment about a corrupt legal system, which is based on lying and deceit, which got the country enmeshed in the witch hunts and the impeachment, as we should have had our eye on the ball being prepared for the coronavirus. And if you don't think that the president and the rest of the government didn't know early on from intelligence reports that this was happening, but we found out only later because the president was diverted, and they were diverted thanks to all these witch hunts and the corrupt legal system that diverted his attention, you're wrong. Senator Richard Burr, head of the Intelligence Committee, sold his stock right before anybody found out about the coronavirus. So did Dianne Feinstein, senator from California. Burr is from North Carolina, sold their stock, made millions of dollars. Where did they find out about corona? and what was going forward. They were getting intelligence briefings, obviously, and the president had to have the same ones. So lying in deceit led to these witch hunts, which caused the nation not to be prepared for this pandemic. And the president cannot pardon Stone and set an example. He has to keep his own house in order. If you're going to be critical about what the Democrats did, you don't let somebody off the hook for lying under oath, obstructing justice, threatening witnesses, and subverting the legal system. Now, here's the misinformation that's out there, because people like Tucker Carlson and others give you the false impression. I sat in Stone's trial for Jerry Corsi. Jerry was subpoenaed to testify, possibly, both for the prosecution and Stone. But Stone didn't call one witness at the trial. He didn't even testify himself. They had little to no documentary evidence. They never moved to change the venue of the trial. They complained that there was political bias and prejudice on the jury. They never even asked the judge to send it to some other court in some other state. They didn't do a voir dire of the jurors. They could have gone on the internet and seen some of the statements that were out there. And the reality is that Stone had no evidence. He doesn't want a new trial. He wants a pardon, because a new trial will result in another conviction, probably even quicker than this one. So the president needs to set an example. You know, the president became a conservative in the last several years. He never was a conservative. He was a Democrat. He supported abortion. He just saw the light and he came to the conservative cause. And we conservatives must keep our own house in order if we're going to have the moral, ethical, and legal authority to keep the left in order. And that's why the president should not pardon Stone. And if he does, it could cost him the election, because it will sway enough independent voters to give the election to Joe Biden and Michelle Obama. And if that happens, we'll be in a crisis, and this country will be going down faster than it would from a corona COVID-19 virus. I'll be right back with the second segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, go to freedomwatchusa.org and sign up for and support our class action and other cases against the communist Chinese.
Fearless.
He's claiming he's crazy, he's racist, he's out to kill the Democrats.
Dangerous.
You don't care, he uses the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Talking about corruption in the legal system, the protectors of our legal system are the federal judges in particular. They're there to prevent us from the tyranny of the other two branches of government and tyranny among the citizenry against ourselves. It's very interesting. I've been doing some research and writing my book, and I got into the writings of Thomas Jefferson, who was the only one that saw things clearly, basically, back when we started this country in 1776 by declaring independence, and later with the Constitution in 1789. And he warned us against the unbridled power, in particular, of federal judges. He believed in individual rights. He believed in individual power, individual liberties. He would be, rolling over in his grave, seeing what these governors are doing and confining people to house arrest right now. He predicted that if the government fears the people, there will be liberty. But if the people fear the government, there'll be tyranny. He also said because judges are unelected, unlike the other two branches of government, they'll have the power to run roughshod under the vision of our founding fathers and of this republic. And sure enough, he was right. In doing my research, I went back and looked at the Constitution. It's something that really didn't totally dawn on me when I wrote my first book, my autobiography, Horrors, Why and How I Came to Fight the Establishment, which you can still get on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and elsewhere, is that, the Constitution does not give lifetime tenure to federal judges. It says they shall serve for good behavior. That's not the same thing as lifetime tenure. That's been interpreted and acquiesced in by various factions in this country to say that they're there for life. In addition, the Constitution does not grant immunity to federal judges if they make decisions that are intentionally wrong or reckless or grossly negligent. Doesn't say anything about it. Who gave judges immunity? You guessed it. The Supreme Court gave itself immunity and gave the judges immunity. They didn't have the power to do that. So the biggest way that we could prevent tyranny in this country without having to start a violent revolution is to make it clear, perhaps an act of Congress, if you can never get them to do it, and stop playing patty cakes and games up there, that there's no such thing as lifetime tenure. Congress could legislate 2 5-year terms renewable for good behavior, you see, to clarify that there's no immunity when a judge does something which is harmful intentionally or reckless in a grossly negligent manner. That would keep it under control. Now, why is this important? Because what we've seen in recent months and years, as I said in the first part of this show, were 2 witch hunts that were started through lying and deceit and false testimony, false warrants, fusion GPS, Steele dossiers, lies that are punishable as perjury, punishable as obstruction of justice, punishable as criminal contempt, punishable as a traitorous act against this country, sedition. And that's what caused the president to take his eye off the ball, Congress take their eye off the ball, and not be prepared for COVID-19. Clearly, we had the intelligence capability, and it's clear that it was there. And I have information from whistleblowers that it was there, both here and in other countries, that it was known that the Chinese had released this virus from a lab in Wuhan, China, whether by accident or by design. And we have actual intelligence that this was a laboratory that does bioweapons research. This is not immune from prosecution, and it's not immune from a civil suit. And that's why Judicial Freedom Watch, Freudian slip again, because I used to do this at Judicial Watch. Judicial Watch mainly just gets documents now. We take the hard-hitting actions, brought a class action lawsuit in Dallas and in Jerusalem, Israel, for the damage that the Chinese have caused. That's now being mimicked in various countries around the world, as well as a criminal complaint at The Hague. I ask you to go to freedomwatchusa.org and support those cases and contribute with tax-deductible contributions. This is expensive. But if the president were to pardon Roger Stone, he would set such a bad example, because the lying, the perjury, the witness tampering, and obstruction of justice, which Stone committed. Again, he offered no evidence at trial to defend himself, no real evidence. He has no defense. He wants a pardon because he knows if he was retried, he would be convicted again on 7 counts of perjury. And maybe if he had testified, there would even be more counts of perjury, because the guy has a tendency to lie, as we've seen. More than a tendency, believe me. So this is why the president cannot pardon Stone, because it could swing enough independent voters to put Joe Biden and Michelle Obama in office. And that would be a disaster. That would be the end of this country, worse than anything that could happen with COVID-19. I'll be right back with Yu Ming of the Falun Gong, a politically persecuted prisoner who escaped to the United States, and will tell you all about the evil nature of that regime.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm very proud to bring on the show an individual who we'll call Yu Ming, Y-U-M-I-N-G. That's his name. He's a Chinese freedom fighter, escaped from the communist Chinese in China, and contacted me after learning of our class action lawsuit and our criminal complaint at The Hague against the communist Chinese. He was a member of the Falun Gong party, which opposes the regime, fights for freedom. I'll let him speak for himself, but I want you to listen closely to him, because it explains the inhumanity and the criminal conduct of the leaders in Beijing. He was imprisoned for a number of years. He escaped through Thailand to the United States. I'm not going to say where he currently lives, because he could be at risk, but he's a very brave person, and it's why we need a strong response to the communist Chinese in Beijing over this coronavirus, which has so destroyed not just the United States economy and harmed our health, but the entire world. So his interpreter is with us, David, and I thank him for introducing me to him. But I wanted you to hear from it firsthand as to the treachery and tyranny of the communist Chinese regime. David?
Yeah, let me interpret for him.
Okay.
Yes, Larry, you want to ask him a question or just ask him to just...
Yes. No, go ahead. Let him explain, what happened to him in China. We have about 14 minutes. I want to get it across, and we'll have you on again. But I want him to explain exactly what this regime is all about and why he believes they intentionally tried to harm the rest of the world.
Okay. 他说他现在就是让你
我因为信仰啊，因为反对中共暴政，那么在中共的劳教所和监狱当中一共待了将近12年。
I was arrested and put in the labor camp and prison because of my belief of Falun Gong. So I was in the prison for 12 years.
这期间呢，我遭受了很多酷刑折磨，包括无数次电击，被吊靠在门上1个多月。
I was seriously tortured by electric baton and hung up on the gate for about over a month.
被绑在铁椅子上坐了3个月。
I was stuck on the iron chair for 3 months.
有半年时间单独关押在铁皮笼子里。
I was put in a cage, in a very small cage, for 6 months.
长时间不让睡觉。
And deprived from sleeping for a long time.
这期间呢，和我在一起的很多我认识的人，已经有10多个人失去生命了。
Over a dozen of my personal friends died of torture during this period.
残酷的迫害让我震撼和痛苦，所以说我就想一定要把这些邪恶公布出去，让全世界的人们都知道中共的邪恶。
I suffered a lot, so I want to tell the world, outside the world, the evil Communist Party.
所以我决定在监狱和劳教所当中用各种微型的摄像机拍摄中共的暴行。
So I decided to secretly take videos in the labor camp and jail.
其中呢，我在劳教所拍摄了黑劳工、奴工的镜头。
I took the video of the labor slaves.
还有啊，有一个也是反抗中共暴政的法轮功学员，那么他被打成重伤的镜头。
And another Falun Gong practitioner who were seriously tortured, and got disabled.
Yeah. 还有一个人叫胡国建的人，他在监狱关押期间，被打成了脑溢血，把头盖骨摘除之后成了植物人。
Another Falun Gong practitioner named Hu Guojian was tortured and lost his consciousness.
最后他也死在了监狱里边。
And died in the jail.
对，我把他这些镜头全都拍摄下来了。
I took the videos of all these things.
所以当年2008年的时候，中国正在看奥运会，那么迫害和酷刑了很多人。我把这些镜头拍摄下来了以后，就越狱，从监狱当中出来，想把这些镜头呢放给全世界们。
是哪几月
？2008年8月。
8月份。In August 2008, during the Beijing Olympic Games, a lot of people were arrested and tortured. I took a lot of videos inside the jail, inside the labor camp. I decided to tell the outside world the truth in China. So I managed to escape from the labor camp, a highly secured labor camp in 马三家沈阳 province, 辽宁 province.
对，当时越狱成功来以后呢，就想把这些发布到全世界来。
I successfully escaped from the labor camp.
在2013年的时候，我又在中国大陆拍摄各个医院调查中共活摘人体器官的这些内幕。
In 2013, I began to investigate the organ harvest in China in the hospitals in different cities.
也拿到了第一手的这个镜头和资料。
And got a lot of footage.
所以呢，当时我拿到这些资料之后，我就从中国逃离出来。
And later I was arrested, but the video was kept by my family. And after I was released from the jail in 2017, I decided to escape from China.
Yeah, 我当时呢是偷渡到第三国家之后，然后到达了泰国。在泰国呢，在美国这个驻泰国大使馆的帮助下，美国政府的帮助下，然后辗转的来到美国。
I managed to escape to Thailand first, and then with the help of the U.S. Embassy in Thailand, I came to the United States and joined my family, my wife and my daughter, and my son came first before I was released.
Yeah. 到美国来呢，我就想把我拍摄的这些最珍贵的录像，就是中共在国内怎么镇压人民、怎么迫害人民的这些真相，向全世界人民曝光。
After coming to the United States, I plan to tell the whole world how the Communist Party tortured the Chinese people and persecuted the Chinese people.
Yeah. 很高兴能有这个机会，能上这个节目，能向大家来介绍我拍摄的这些视频。现在应该是对邪恶的共产主义有深刻的认识了。
Yeah, I'm glad to be here to tell the American people the evil Communist Party how evil it is.
Yeah. 那么我在这呢也想去控告中共的 CGTN， 因为他呢当时拿着我的录像，诬陷我的律师，然后在全世界播放，让我的律师呢也这个电视认罪，律师呢也被判了4年的和2年的。
Yeah, I also plan to sue the CGTN, the Chinese global TV network, which is a subsidiary of CCTV in China. They use interpret the footage of my court, and they use this footage to sentence my lawyer into jail. And one of the lawyers named Wang Quanzhang was just released 3 weeks ago. He was the last one who was released of these human rights lawyers who were arrested in 2015. Right?
对，他当时拿我的这个。
This is Larry right now. I want to say that we're going to have you on again. I wanted to introduce our listeners to this. This is not about the Chinese people who are good people. In fact, many of the plaintiffs that have signed up for our class action against China over COVID-19, about 30% are Chinese Americans and Asians. But they need to understand from your own experience and the experience of others, the brutality and evilness of this regime. And that's why I'm getting more critical of the president, even though I support him, because all he says is Chinese virus. His Justice Department does nothing. It should be joining Freedom Watch in these lawsuits, should be filing criminal complaints like we did at The Hague, or bringing their own prosecution. And the world needs to know just how evil this regime is. I mean, they have a president who has a very nice smile. He's like a little panda bear, but he's evil. He sits on top of a Chinese Politburo. I have copies of what you took pictures of the organ harvesting by these communist Chinese. I'm going to put them up on our website with this radio show. I want people to see what this is all about. And you are a very, very courageous person. And I might add that I've been contacted not just by you, but many other Chinese people who have fled from that communist regime, and they're on our side as to what has happened here. Now, we just have about 2 minutes left, so if you can, close out this interview, we're going to bring you back again because this is important, and bring some of your friends. I'd like to get your lawyer, who was also imprisoned, on our radio show, if he can do that, although he's probably still in China and can't. But this is very important because people do not understand what this regime is all about. All they understand is that their iPhones are made there, their golf clubs, their clothing, and everything else. And we have companies that have invested in China stupidly, and that needs to end. So you've got about a minute and a half left, Yuming. Say what you want to say, and we will have you back in a later show. And we thank you for your courage and really appreciate it. Perhaps tell us what Falun Gong is all about. I understand it. It's a spiritual group that believes in peace and getting together, but apparently that's too much for the communist regime.
OK， 他说你现在还有1分半钟哈，就是说来做一个结束哈。你可以，他说他非常欣赏你的这个勇气啊，就是说你做了很多这种就是揭露中共邪恶的，他希望你能告诉美国人民，就说这个中共有多么邪恶。同时呢，也可以就是他说这个就像川普，他很支持川普了，但他觉得就是说川普老是就是说这个就中国这个泰德熊啊，就是这个习近平很好啊，怎么样的，然后。他说就是你怎么样，就是说你可以介绍，也可以很快的介绍一下法轮功，就是简单的1、2句话，然后介绍法轮功，然后就是你结束的时候大概就是一共大概1分半左右，你就非常非常简短的就是讲一讲就是中共多么邪恶。你就没事你说吧，没关系。对，你现在说吧。
OK.
David, if you could translate, because we're running out of time, just whatever Yuming has said, and then we'll bring you back again.
The persecution of Falun Gong is peaceful meditation practice, which follows the principle of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. It has, in 1999, it has 100 million people practicing Falun Gong in China. But the Communist Party feel like this is a threat to their power, so they began to persecute Falun Gong. It lasts for over 20 years already. 1,000 people died of torture by the persecution, and the persecution is still going on now.
We understand that, and that's why it's so important, because anything that's a threat to the communist regime, just like anything that's a threat to the left in this country, frankly, must be destroyed. Thank you very much for your courage. We'll have you back again. God bless you, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now the verdict, ladies and gentlemen. Do not drink the Kool-Aid that's out there with regard to people like Roger Stone. He deserved to be convicted. He presented no evidence in his defense to speak of. Never did an adequate voir dire, as you call it, an investigation on the internet, even on the internet, of comments that were being made by some of these jurors about Donald Trump. And the judge, frankly, was correct in not granting a new trial. But Roger Stone doesn't want a new trial because he'll be convicted again. He just wants to be let off the hook with a pardon. And that's why he has his political hacks like Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity running interference for him. But the people don't understand. And that's why I'm telling you straight up, because if we conservatives are to keep our house in order, and Stone isn't even a conservative. When he, for a few weeks, was running my Senate campaign, secretively, he was actually consulting with Al Sharpton on Sharpton's presidential campaign, if you can believe that. Stone's no conservative. He's an opportunist. He's a self-styled dirty trickster. If the president pardons him, in my view, the president stands a really good chance of losing this election and putting it into the hands, the government into the hands, and the nation into the hands of Joe Biden, who's effectively brain dead, who will probably die in office, and then we'll wind up with President Michelle Obama. And she is an out-and-out racist. She doesn't like whites, and she doesn't like people of faith. If you think it was bad before, under Barack Obama, this will be much worse, and it will probably be the end of this country. So this is the seriousness of this. Anything could tip the balance. But on the other hand, the president, who has not done a great job with the coronavirus, I'm sorry, I'm not a cheerleader. I love the president. I want him to succeed, but he's got to hear the truth. He's created a lot of confusion. He has a position one day, he changes it the next day. He's giving the left an opportunity to take shots at him. People haven't gotten their checks fast enough to save their businesses, and they've been unemployed. Unfortunately, the person in power gets blamed. He no longer can campaign on a robust economy. He no longer can campaign on a lot of different things. People's minds are only on coronavirus. And that's why, since his Justice Department is doing nothing, I suggest and ask and plead that you support what we're doing in our class action in Dallas, Texas, and in Jerusalem, Israel. There'll soon be other cases around the world. And support us and join those class actions. Sign up. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. Support our criminal case at The Hague to have the Chinese leadership thrown in prison. You heard Yu Ming of Falun Gong testify on this case and on this show, and we're going to have him back again, of the inhumanity and evil nature of that regime. And all his group stands for is spirituality and peace. That's too much for the Chinese leadership because no one can threaten their rule. That's why they're godless. That's why the left in this country is by and large godless. Who is God? Dictatorial government. And that's what we'll get with Michelle Obama as president of the United States. So you think of the risks here, and I suggest that you contact the president and urge him not to pardon Roger Stone. You know, he defamed me. He defamed Jerry Corsi. He's harmed others. He's threatened witnesses like Randy Credico, says he's going to file bar complaints if Credico didn't testify falsely or take the fifth. He's done the same thing to me. You know, he has had people file bar complaints against me because I represented Jerry Corsi. I mean, this is a person who is just a bad, bad, bad person. And the president, if he pardons him, stands a real risk of losing this election. So that's my message. And, you know, I talk plainly. I don't have to go along to get along. I don't have to be a cheerleader. I support the president in my personal capacity. I'm not telling you what to do as head of Freedom Watch. I will vote for him. But the reality is he better shape up or ship out right now because he's in trouble. And the GOP, as written in that political article, knows that. It's now all about Corona-19, and the last thing he needs is to pardon someone who the independents, the swing voters, despise, and to go against his own principles, where he claimed that the legal system set him up through false testimony and perjury, false warrants, false reports like the Steele dossier. You know, if you're going to keep your own house in order, you better be consistent. That's my message for today. I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, stay safe. God bless you and your family. God bless me and my family and all the people of the United States and the world. And as I said, God helps those that help themselves. So sign up for our class actions and our criminal cases at freedomwatchusa.org. Thank you for listening to me. I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman.